All right, showing you just the magnitude of what is going on here. This is a smaller boulder. Well, this is the smallest. That's a smaller, and what still exists.
The passage of Rafael as a tropical storm over Jamaica is said to be the cause of this major landslide that has caused blockage as well as closure of the Bog Walk Gorge. Now, products of this landslide, as seen in the video, are boulders, massive boulders. And these boulders can give indication as regards to the kind of forces that are behind the nature of this landslide. This Google terrain map reflects the general outline of the Bog Walk Gorge. Now, general geology of the Bog Walk Gorge is karst carbonate, such as limestone. These limestone rocks, as can be seen in the video, are blocky in nature, as well as they have areas of weathering. So we can see this weathering as reflected in a orange-brown hue in color. Now, in addition to that, what it is that the terrain map also shows is that the boundaries of the gorge in terms of the roadway as the reference point, the hillsides are relatively steep. Now, I would like to just quickly mention that the nature of these hillsides is what presents an additional challenge to engineers in terms of them conducting their assessment, doing their rehabilitation work to the banks of the gorge and making the gorge open for public access. The major factor responsible for the banks of the gorge being as steep as they are is the presence of fault zones or fault lines. Fault lines that are products of previous earthquakes. So the gorge in and of itself basically runs through earthquake zones, long story short. And these earthquakes of the past have a significant role to play behind the rocks that line the banks of the slope being fractured, being weathered further by water, by roots of plants, by the climate, by gravity. So now, are there any solutions to this challenge that is now presented to the engineers as well as to the public that depends on this road, this gorge being reopened? Well, in the short term, there does exist the solution of the roads being cleared by the engineers, yes. However, considering, as the engineers have said in the media reports, that the landslide, the banks of the gorge, especially where the landslide has occurred, basically is unstable. That presents an existential threat or hazard to the motoring public that depend on this gorge. What it is that would have to be considered, especially if it's a case that they're going to be thinking about removing further areas of weakness in terms of where other boulders could be basically hanging and in an area relatively easy for it to just dislodge, they can consider removing that. But they may also have to consider putting in some zones to provide a degree of capture of these potentially falling rocks of various size. All right. So as an example, Gabion basket or Gabion basket may be something that they will have to consider. But before they get to that, a thorough assessment has to be done. I mean, as I further look on the map, blasting may be something that some of you may consider. But if you look at the overall landscape, to blast whatever debris of weathered rock that may exist on the bank as is, you're further going to dislodge other rocks that are further in the interior of the bank itself. So, in essence, it presents a huge challenge in terms of the land use, which is the gorge being used as a route of transport. Right? If it was more so a zone that they could transition into a quarry zone, it would have been easier for them to further just, erode out the inner flanks of the gorge. But having said that, the gorge is also very important in terms of acting as a watershed uh, for the Rio Cobre River. So yeah, I really don't want to be in the position of the head personnel that is responsible for the rehabilitation work of the Bog Walk Gorge. Let's continue to just watch and see.